client asked me on his one-on-one strategy call, how do I control my thoughts during this interview? I know that the science has already been judged by the time that I'm invited to interview, but when I'm asked questions about my CV and my accomplishments, I just get this avalanche of thoughts, and I just want to put a barrier there. I just want to stop that so that I can use your framework in order to organize my answer and make sure that the answers that I'm giving are fully justified by my CV and also the proposal that I've delivered in that interview. And I was telling him, great, at least you have identified the problem, the reason behind why your answers to these particular types of questions are not quite good enough. So now we know the problem, let's fix it. The truth is, you can't control your thoughts. And that's not what he wanted to hear. But luckily, my job as a career coach is not to win a popularity contest. My job is to get you the grant. So today, I'm going to discuss why you should not try to control your thoughts, stop trying to control your thoughts, and what you should do instead. By the end of this episode, you'll have a precise step-by-step protocol that you're going to use to deal with that storm of thoughts that comes up when you're in the grant interview and someone on the review panel asks, but you haven't actually published any papers on membrane transport proteins, now have you? If we haven't met yet, I am Kathy Charasia. I'm a physicist and a career coach for scientists, and I teach practical quantitative methods that you can actually use to create a career and therefore a life that you love. And if you're not sure exactly how to do this in this competitive scientific job market, I have done that, and I'm going to show you where to start. Hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it if you want to get my weekly training videos, and take the scientific superpower quiz at kathy.science/quiz. And it'll help you identify and articulate your strengths as a scientist so you can use those to stand out. I'll link it down below for you, and you can use that framework to get on the right track. All right, let's get this party started. Raise your hand if you've ever been in the middle of a grant interview and you're giving a bad answer to a question, and inside your head you know that you're giving a bad answer, but you can't stop this storm, this avalanche of thoughts, so that you can just think clearly for a second and give a precise, clear, and articulate answer. Every scientist on Earth will be raising their hand right now. I have been there. One of the committee members asked, oh, you can't publish on E. coli anymore. Like, bacteria, nobody cares about them. And I just could not give a clear and good answer to that question because the only thoughts in my head were just like, yeah, but you publish on bacteria. Or a second example is this colleague of mine who we met on a job interview. We were kind of doing this round of job interviews together, and she was just like, one of the committee members asked me, like, you've been in academia your whole entire life in the ivory tower. Like, how do you know that you'll be a good PI? And she was just like, I don't know what I said, Kathy, but I'm sure that it lost me the job, because the only thing that I could think was like, so have you. You've never had a real job in your life either. And you're a good professor now, aren't you? I just couldn't get my brain to shut up so that I could think of a good answer, because I really wasn't expecting that question. And that's your first mistake. Don't try to get your brain to shut up for two reasons. One, it doesn't work. You can't control your thoughts. They just arrive. You experience them. For example, I was taking a shower this morning and I didn't decide, okay, now I'm gonna worry about whether my husband made it to BPS safely. These thoughts just came. It wasn't my intention to think about them. You cannot control which thoughts come to you. I can't stop these thoughts from arriving any more than I can stop Luna from barking out the window at the mailman. It just doesn't work like that. What you can do instead is treat them like a 2-year-old. 1, they are not you. I think, therefore I am. Wrong. 2, they are not always right. 3, you don't have to do what they say. 4, but arguing with them is useless. 5, know and love them, even when you'd really rather not right now. They're not bad or wrong, and they're trying to help, but they're just two. 6, if you keep doing what you're doing, they're likely to lose interest and wander off anyway. And 7, only to return at another inconvenient time, but hopefully not in the middle of a grant interview. I don't have kids, but Luna is too. 1, I am not her. This seems obvious because she's a dog, but you'd be surprised how many people cannot separate themselves from their thoughts. They really think that they are their thoughts. 2, she thinks small children on tricycles are dangerous and we should kill them before they kill us. Now, that's her hypothesis, and as a scientist, you're gonna question that for a second. You're not just gonna do what she says. But this is what we do with our thoughts. We don't hear them. We don't hear the hypothesis. We don't question them, even though as scientists, that's what we're trained to do. We just believe our thoughts and act accordingly. 3, obviously, I don't agree and I'm not gonna let her kill them. 4, I'll never convince her otherwise because she is irrational. Arguing with her is a waste of time and I'd rather go to the beach. But I can't ignore her. I do have to hear her because she's literally trying to kill the neighbor's kid. 5, but she's cute and I love her and I hope to God she grows out of it. 6, if I keep walking, she will too. She'll literally leave the neighbor's kid behind and she'll forget all about it. And 7, when we get home and I'm busy, she'll pee on the floor. Same goes for your thoughts. Don't try to tell them to shut up. Don't try to stop them or control them. Use your scientific training to hear them as the hypotheses that they actually are. They may not be right. Look, not all of your hypotheses in the lab are right either, but you gotta know them and you gotta love them anyway, exactly as you would a 2-year-old, because they are trying to help. And that brings me to reason number 2, why you should not ignore or try to stop your thoughts. Some of the hypotheses could actually be true, and you shouldn't ignore them. There could be something that you need to do about them. You can't just keep walking. And in order to figure out which of your thoughts do you actually need to do something about, what we need to do is answer the question, what are your thoughts exactly? The THF BCD framework is how we're actually gonna take that data. If you've done Single Molecule Yoga Lab with me, go grab your meditation log from module 5, I think it is, because we're gonna go through table 2 step by step. If you're new here and you wanna follow along, I've pulled out table 2 for you and you can download it for free at kathy.yoga/log. I'll link it down below for you. The purpose of this exercise is to have you collect the data and prove to yourself that your thoughts are formulating a hypothesis which is causing a feeling, which is causing a physical reaction that the committee can see. And that's what they're basing their conclusions on. And once you experience that for yourself, you can intervene at any stage along that series. Even though today we're just gonna discuss how to intervene at that first stage, that thought stage. So this is what you're gonna do. Sit down in the most physically comfortable position that you can find. 2, set a timer for 5 minutes. 3, close your eyes and take some deep belly breaths. And a thought is gonna come up. And as soon as that thought arises, say out loud, I'm thinking. Even though I know everybody in the lab is gonna look at you funny. And then write down in your log the answer to the question, what is this thought exactly? Oh shit, I don't have enough publications. That was my exact thought. And then write down in the second column, hypothesis. What is this thought about? I mean, I know it's about the grant interview, but what is the story that this thought is telling? For example, I don't have enough publications. That thought is telling the story. The hypothesis behind that is, I'm not gonna get the grant. That hypothesis will bring up a feeling. So write down, I feel X. For example, I'm not gonna get the grant, that hypothesis brings up a feeling of anxiety. I feel anxious. And professional tip, if you write, I feel that, after reviewing hundreds of meditation logs from scientists, I feel that, then what follows is a thought. It's not a feeling. You'd never say, I feel that scared, right? I feel that anxious. I feel that angry. So if you write down, I feel that, that's a thought. That's not right. That feeling will bring up a physical sensation. This is tricky because it can be subtle, but for me, anxiety is not subtle. I feel this knot in my stomach. So that's that physical sensation that feeling has brought up, that shows in my body. And if you're struggling with this, there's that great PNAS paper that we do as a journal club inside the Yoga Lab curriculum. And drop me a line in the comments below if you wanna cover that in a YouTube video. C, category. And that is from Buddhist philosophy. Either it's a craving, I really, really, really want this, or aversion. I don't want this. I'll do anything to get rid of this feeling. And professional tip, for interviews, usually it's aversion. In my example, I choose aversion because I don't like this feeling, this pit in my stomach. I'd like to get rid of it. And that brings me to D. Is there something that you can do about it and that you're willing to do about it? And this is a subtle difference. If I'm walking on this side of the street and it's cold, and I look on the other side of the street and it's sunny on that side of the street, then yeah, I might want to cross that side of the street where I'll be warmer. But if that street is a 4-lane highway, or with trams and cyclists going in both directions and cars coming, then maybe I don't want to take that risk to cross the street. It's just not worth it to me. So can you do something about it? And do you want to do something about it? This point, this last step in this chart, D, that's where you decide whether you want to do something about it, because some of your hypotheses will be right, and therefore there is something for us to do about it. For example, if you're afraid that this particular question will come up because there's a hole in your record, okay, let's practice an answer to that question ahead of time. If you don't know what they'll ask, great. Let's go through all the most common grant interview questions. We have a list of more than 50 of them so that you are prepared. And some of your hypotheses may be wrong. If I don't get this grant, then I'll lose my job and I'll live under a bridge with all of my dresses in a black garbage bag. Okay, Luna, I hear you. Thank you. I know you're trying to protect me. I'm gonna keep walking. Come if you want. This is a hard homework to do on your own. That's why we do it as part of the course. It's the curriculum of the Yoga Lab. And if you have been with me since the beginning, since I first started Single Molecule Yoga Lab, one person at a time, more than 10 years ago, I know that you have the data. So we're gonna analyze the data. Bonus tip, sort your spreadsheet by the aversion column and look at the hypothesis that you most want to avoid. And then today, you're gonna do something about it. If you have hundreds of thoughts in there, don't worry, me too. Just go and download the latest version of the template that's inside your course and click on the 4th tab and it'll show you a pie chart that's broken down by hypothesis. And your homework is to do one thing that will prevent that outcome. For example, my hypothesis right now is I'll never get any better. And that makes me feel anxious, and this knot in my stomach about that is deeply unpleasant and I want to get rid of it. Meanwhile, I've run out of my prescription meds and I'm just too busy to stop at the pharmacy, which is literally around the corner, for a refill. So as soon as I finish recording this video for you, guess I'm gonna be walking to the pharmacy. So there you have it. Don't stop your storm of thoughts when you're in that moment of crisis in the middle of the grant interview. Just treat them like a 2-year-old. I hear you. Thanks for your input. I love you. I'm gonna keep walking. And then later, when you have 5 minutes, sit down and write down exactly what your thoughts are and the story that they're telling, their hypothesis, so you can figure out which ones you can and want to act on. One of my clients was telling me the thought that I have the most often about the interview is, what if I fail? And that is consistent with the data of my meditation log and also n greater than 100 meditation logs. I'm gonna fail is also one of my main hypotheses, the one that I have the most experience dealing with. So next week, we're gonna talk about what if I fail? How to deal with failure. What are you gonna do if that hypothesis turns out to be true and you don't get the grant? If this video was helpful and you're gonna treat your thoughts like a 2-year-old so you can ace your next grant interview, forward it to your colleagues who also have grant interviews coming up so they too can stop trying to control their thoughts or stop the storm and use this method too so they can organize their answers precisely like we discussed last week. And let me know so I can make more helpful videos for you by commenting below with questions, comments, concerns, or by hitting like and subscribe. And I will see you next week for how to deal with failure.